My name is Ethan Hale, and I barely escaped what happened. This is the strange case, the one nobody wants to believe. It began deep in Washington's Olympic Peninsula, isolated and wild. I sought escape, a solace found only in the deepest wilderness. The ancient trees loomed, their branches forming a shadowy cathedral. Moss hung heavy, dripping with the ceaseless moisture of the rainforest. Any of my excursions, a search for solitude. I sought the raw, untamed wilderness, far from human sounds, the kind of quiet that lets you hear your own heartbeat. I packed my gear, checked my maps, and set out alone. The trailhead was deserted, just a weathered signpost. Moss-covered trees towered, their branches forming a green canopy. Sunlight struggled to pierce the dense, ancient forest ceiling. Yet the air hung heavy, damp with the scent of pine and decay. Every step sank slightly into the rich, soft earth. The forest floor was a tapestry of ferns and fallen leaves. I moved deeper, the trail narrowing, almost swallowing me. Hours passed in a meditative rhythm of hiking and breathing. The only sounds were my boots, the wind, and distant birds. Then, a subtle change, an almost imperceptible shift occurred. I first heard it around midday, a faint, rhythmic sound, a delicate, distinct click, then another and another. It was soft, easily dismissed as an insect or falling debris, but its pattern, its precise repetition, caught my attention. Click, click, click. Not random, not natural in that way. I paused, scanning the undergrowth, my head tilted. The sound seemed to emanate from the dense brush to my right. I strained my ears, not holding my breath, muscles tensing. It stopped. Complete silence descended once more. "Just the woods playing tricks," I muttered, shaking my head. I continued my hike, trying to dismiss the strange auditory flicker, but a seed of unease had been firmly planted in my mind. I pushed deeper, aiming for a small, secluded lake. The forest grew even thicker, the shadows lengthening prematurely. The silence became less peaceful, more oppressive, heavier. My senses sharpened, tuned to every rustle and whisper. Then it returned. Closer this time, unmistakably distinct. Click, click, click. Faster now, almost urgent in its rhythm. It wasn't just to my right anymore, it seemed to surround me. The sounds echoed, bouncing off the massive tree trunks. I stopped dead, my heart hammering against my ribs. My hand instinctively went to the hilt of my utility knife. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding weak and thin. No answer. Only the forest's profound, watchful silence. But the clicking continued, a relentless, dry, insistent sound. It felt like it was moving with me, pacing my every step. Each click was a cold, hard stone against my sanity. I tried to convince myself it was an animal, a bird perhaps. But no creature I knew made such a precise, metallic sound. It was too deliberate, too unorganic for any forest dweller. A primal fear began to prickle at the back of my neck. I picked up my pace, a frantic energy seizing my limbs. My eyes darted from shadow to shadow, searching for a source. The clicking accelerated, mirroring my increasing speed. It was no longer just following, it was almost hurting me. I felt a chilling intelligence behind the insistent rhythm. Something unseen, calculating, was closing in around me. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, blurring my vision. I stumbled over a root, catching myself before a fall. The clicking paused for a terrifying beat, then resumed. It was closer now, directly behind me, almost at my heels. I could almost feel its presence, a cold, heavy pressure. The air grew colder, even under the dense forest canopy. A shiver ran through me, independent of the temperature. I imagined eyes, unblinking and ancient, watching my fear. The forest, once my sanctuary, had become a living trap. Every branch seemed to reach, every shadow to lengthen. I broke into a desperate run, ignoring the rough terrain. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I couldn't stop. The clicking was a relentless drumbeat. In urging me forward, it felt less like pursuit and more like grim anticipation. It knew I was running. It knew exactly where I was headed. I crashed through ferns, my backpack snagging on low branches. The clicking was now a furious staccato, right on my heels. I risked a glance over my shoulder, seeing nothing but green, yet the sound was so immediate, so undeniably close. Then, a new sound, a faint, wet, scraping noise emerged. It mingled with the clicks, adding another layer of horror, like dry bones rubbing together or chitinous plates grinding. My blood ran cold. This was no animal I had ever known. This was something alien, something profoundly wrong. I saw the faint glimmer of the lake through the trees ahead. A desperate hope surged, igniting a final burst of speed. If I could just reach the open water, perhaps I'd be safe. Perhaps the creature, whatever it was, disliked open spaces. I burst through the last line of trees, gasping for air. The lake lay before me, still and dark under the bruised sky. I scrambled to the shore, collapsing onto the muddy bank. My body heaved, my mind screaming with terror and exhaustion. The clicking stopped, abruptly, completely. The sudden silence was almost as terrifying as the sound. I lay there, chest aching, listening to the frantic thumping heart. Minutes stretched into an eternity of silent dread. I slowly pushed myself up, my muscles screaming in protest. My eyes scanned the tree line, searching for any movement. The forest stood still, unnaturally so, like a painted backdrop. Not a single leaf stirred, not a bird sang. Then, from the very edge of the woods, I saw it. Not a creature, not an animal, but an object. It's a small, dark, glistening thing, resting on a mossy rock. It was perfectly round, smooth, and obsidian black. No, not round, but perfectly hemispherical, like half a sphere. And from its surface, barely perceptible, a rhythmic pulse, a tiny, almost silent vibration, resonating with a click. It wasn't moving, it wasn't organic, it was some kind of device, or part of one, left behind, perhaps deliberately. A lure, a tracker, a fragment of something larger. My mind raced, trying to comprehend this impossible artifact. Then, the object vibrated one final, resonant click, and a tiny, almost invisible fissure appeared on its surface. A sliver of emerald light shone from within the crack, and from the crack, a faint, wispy tendril emerged. It was impossibly thin, almost like smoke, but it had form. It reached out, extending towards me, slowly, deliberately. My blood froze. This wasn't just a sound, this was them. It was a part of whatever had been tracking me, following me. The tendril grew longer, faster, reaching across the clearing. It wasn't solid, but it carried an undeniable presence, a cold, invasive intelligence, probing the air between us. I scrambled backwards, away from the encroaching ethereal limb. My fear transformed into a stark, desperate need to survive. I didn't understand it, but I knew I had to escape its reach. I tore my eyes from the tendril and plunged into the dark lake. The icy water shocked my system, stealing my breath. I swam with frantic strokes, away from the shore, away from the woods. Behind me, the emerald light pulsed, growing brighter. The tendril stretched further, almost touching the water's surface. But it paused, hesitant. It is as if the water was a barrier. I kept swimming, not daring to look back, until my strength gave out. I floated on my back, gasping, staring at the distant stars. The forest was a dark, silent wall against the horizon, and the clicking, the bone-dry, relentless clicking, was gone. But the memory, the terrifying knowledge of what lurks there, that I know will never truly leave me. I am Ethan Hale, and I know something sinister waits there, something with bony appendages and an insatiable rhythmic hunger, something that defies explanation, existing beyond our modern understanding. The forest holds its secrets close, but I heard one terrible truth. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear that relentless, terrible clicking. It's a sound I will carry to my grave, a terror that never truly ends.